In 48 American states, there is a vegetable you can buy at the grocery store. But if you plant it in your backyard, you face federal charges. Meanwhile, 3 billion people on the other side of the planet eat this every single day. This is not a drug. This is not a poison. It is a leafy green vegetable with 3 times more iron than spinach, more vitamin C than oranges, and it grows in conditions that would drown your entire garden. And they made it illegal. Welcome to Nature's Blacklist. The document sits in the USDA archives, dated 1973. Title: Federal Noxious Weed List. And on that list, right between Hydrilla and Salvinia, you will find Ipomoea aquatica. In the Philippines, they call it Kangkong. In China, choy. In Vietnam, muống. Across Southeast Asia, it is simply breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But in the United States, growing it without a permit is a federal offense in Florida, Texas, California, and 45 other states. The official justification is 4 words long: potential aquatic invasive species. That is the story they tell. Here is what they do not tell you. Let us run the numbers, because the numbers do not lie, and they certainly do not care about regulatory convenience. Per 100 grams of raw leaf, Kangkong delivers 2.7 milligrams of iron. Standard grocery store spinach delivers 0.81 milligrams. That is not a slight improvement. That is 3 times more iron. The same iron your body uses to transport oxygen to every cell. The same iron deficiency that affects over 2 billion people worldwide. Vitamin C. Kangkong contains 55 milligrams per 100 grams. Spinach contains 28, nearly double. And unlike the vitamin C in supplements that degrades within hours of exposure to air, the vitamin C in fresh Kangkong is bound in living cellular structures that preserve it until the moment it hits your digestive system. Calcium, potassium, B vitamins. Down the line, Kangkong matches or exceeds the leafy greens currently celebrated as superfoods in every health magazine in America. But here is where it gets interesting. Spinach requires careful soil management, consistent watering, protection from pests. Kangkong requires none of that. It grows in mud. It grows in water. It grows in the exact conditions where your carefully cultivated garden drowns and rots. The plant they banned outperforms the plant they sell you, and it does so in environments where industrial agriculture cannot even operate. Let that contradiction settle in your mind for a moment. 3 billion people. That number is not hyperbole. It is demographic reality. Walk through any wet market in Manila. Kangkong is piled in bundles, fresh cut that morning, sold by the kilogram. In Bangkok, it is stir-fried with garlic and chili, a dish so common it does not even have a special name. In Jakarta, it floats in soups. In Ho Chi Minh City, street vendors serve it blanched with fish sauce before the sun comes up. Across China, India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, the Philippines, and dozens of smaller nations, this plant feeds populations at a scale that makes American spinach consumption look like a rounding error. 0 mass poisonings, 0 public health emergencies, 0 governments collapsing because their people ate a leafy green. This plant has been cultivated continuously for over 2,000 years. Archaeological evidence traces its domestication to ancient river civilizations in Southeast Asia, cultures that built entire agricultural systems around monsoon flooding. They did not fight the water, they ate what grew in it. And here is what the history books leave out. Kangkong did not stay in Asia because humans carried it. It crossed oceans on its own, spreading through waterway systems from the deltas of China to the rivers of sub-Saharan Africa to the islands of the Pacific. No human intervention required. The hollow stems float. The nodes root on contact. The plant colonized 3 continents without a single agricultural extension program. When European colonizers arrived in Southeast Asia, they looked at Kangkong and saw a weed. They tried to introduce proper vegetables, cabbages, lettuce. European cultivars bred for temperate climates. They failed. The tropical humidity rotted their imports. The monsoon floods drowned their seedlings. And Kangkong just sat there in the irrigation ditches, thriving, feeding the local populations who knew better than to fight biology. During World War II, when conventional crops failed in flooded fields across the Pacific Theater, Kangkong kept populations alive. The Japanese occupation of the Philippines destroyed rice paddies. Kangkong grew in the irrigation canals. The Vietnam War poisoned agricultural land with defoliants. Kangkong regenerated in waterways downstream from the contamination. It earned a name that appears in multiple languages across the region. The famine food they banned. Not because it tasted bad, because it was the last thing standing when everything else died. This plant has survived colonialism, world wars, and chemical warfare, and now it is classified alongside the most dangerous invasive species on the USDA registry. The question you should be asking is not whether Kangkong is dangerous. 3 billion daily consumers answer that question definitively. The question is, what exactly is Kangkong dangerous to? The USDA Bulletin on Aquatic Weeds contains a phrase that reveals everything. Spreads rapidly through waterway systems, regenerates from stem fragments, difficult to control once established. Read that again. Difficult to control once established. 1 cutting becomes 10 plants in a month. 1 plant dropped in a canal can colonize a mile of waterway in a single growing season. The stems are hollow, allowing fragments to float. The nodes root on contact with water or soil. It does not need seeds. It does not need pollination. It does not need you. From the perspective of ecosystem management, this is a legitimate concern. Invasive aquatic species can disrupt native habitats, alter water chemistry, and outcompete indigenous flora. But from the perspective of food sovereignty, this same trait tells a different story. You cannot patent a plant that propagates from cuttings. Monsanto cannot sell you Kangkong seeds every spring because Kangkong does not need seeds. You cannot sell fertilizer to a crop that extracts nutrients directly from water. You cannot create dependency when the plant regenerates from fragments your neighbor throws in the compost. The industrial agricultural model requires annual purchases: seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, equipment. The machine only functions when farmers remain customers. Kangkong opts out of that entire system. It grows without asking permission. It spreads without requiring transaction. It feeds without creating debt. That is the crime. Now, here is what they did not expect you to figure out. Walk into any H-Mart in Los Angeles, any 99 Ranch in Houston, any Filipino grocery in Jersey City. Find the produce section. There it is, Kangkong. Fresh, green, bundled with rubber bands. Completely legal. You can buy it. You can eat it. You can take it home and cook it tonight. You just cannot grow it. Picture a Saturday afternoon in a Filipino-American kitchen in San Diego. A grandmother is standing at the stove. The wok is smoking. She drops Kangkong into hot oil with garlic and fermented shrimp paste. the sizzle fills the room. Steam rises. The smell hits you, earthy and alive. Nothing like the sterile packages in the supermarket freezer section. Her grandchildren are at the table, waiting. They have eaten this dish 1,000 times. Their great-grandparents ate it in the Philippines. Their ancestors ate it before the Spanish arrived. This is not exotic cuisine. This is Tuesday. And in 48 states, if that grandmother tried to grow the Kangkong she just cooked, she would be breaking federal law. The restriction is not on eating. The restriction is on growing. Think about what that means. The government has no problem with you buying this vegetable from supply chains they can monitor and tax. They have a problem with you producing it yourself, outside their oversight, independent of their systems. If you want to grow Kangkong legally in America, you have two paths. First, check your state's permit system. Florida, surprisingly, offers cultivation permits for contained agricultural operations. Several other states have similar provisions for controlled environments. The permit application requires demonstrating that your growing system cannot connect to natural waterways. Second, grow in completely closed systems. Indoor hydroponics with no external drainage. Aquaponics setups where the water cycles through fish tanks and never touches the ground. Container gardens elevated above any possibility of root escape. Here is exactly how it works. Start with a fresh bundle from the grocery store. Select stems with visible nodes, the small bumps where roots will emerge. Cut 6-inch sections, each with at least 2 nodes. Place them in a container of water, nodes submerged. Within 5 to 7 days, roots appear. Within 2 weeks, new leaves emerge. Transfer to your growing system. Kangkong thrives in water temperatures between 75 and 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Partial to full sunlight, 6 hours minimum. The water should be neutral to slightly alkaline, pH 6.0 to 7.0. No soil required. The roots extract nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium directly from water. Harvest by cutting stems 4 inches above the waterline. The plant regenerates from the cut point within 2 to 3 weeks. One initial purchase of grocery store Kangkong provides infinite cuttings. You never buy again. The plant just keeps producing. This is the part that terrifies the supply chain. Perpetual harvest from a single purchase. No annual seed orders, no fertilizer dependency, no recurring revenue for anyone except you. The common thread in legal cultivation is containment. The regulatory apparatus does not actually care if you eat Kangkong. They care if Kangkong escapes your control and starts growing where they cannot track it. For home cultivation, this is your operational framework. Grow in containers, never plant directly in soil near water features, and never dispose of plant material in ways that could reach drainage systems. Compost responsibly. A responsible grower treats Kangkong like a valuable resource to be contained, not a weed to be discarded carelessly. Always verify your state's current regulations before cultivation. Some states have updated their noxious weed lists in recent years. Some offer permit pathways that did not exist a decade ago. The legal landscape shifts. Stay informed. But let us step back and consider what we are actually looking at here. A plant that requires no fertilizer because it extracts nitrogen directly from water. A plant that requires no pesticides because its rapid growth outpaces most pest damage. A plant that produces food continuously for months rather than in single harvests. A plant that thrives in flooded conditions that destroy conventional crops. Climate models project increasing flood events across the American South and Midwest. The same regions currently classified as prime agricultural land are facing more frequent inundation. Insurance payouts for flooded crops have increased over 300% in the past 2 decades. And the one plant evolutionarily optimized to produce food in exactly those conditions is classified as a Federal Noxious Weed. We are spending billions engineering flood-resistant corn varieties while banning a vegetable that already solved that problem 2,000 years ago. The regulatory framework makes sense if your goal is protecting native ecosystems from invasive species. It makes sense if your goal is maintaining orderly agricultural systems where inputs and outputs can be measured and taxed. It makes no sense if your goal is food security in an era of climate instability. The same government agencies warning about agricultural disruption from extreme weather events have criminalized the cultivation of a crop specifically adapted to those exact disruptions. This is not conspiracy. This is bureaucratic inertia colliding with biological reality. The classification happened in 1973. The climate projections came later. Nobody went back and asked whether the original logic still applied. But you can ask. You can look at the evidence. You can make your own decisions about what grows in your closed container system. Picture 2 futures. In one, you remain dependent on supply chains that fracture under pressure. You saw what happened in 2020. Shelves emptied, prices spiked, and the vegetables that did appear were shipped from thousands of miles away, losing nutrients by the hour. In the other, you have a container on your balcony or a tank in your basement. Kangkong grows. You harvest. It regrows. You harvest again. Your family eats fresh greens with 3 times the iron of anything in the grocery store. And you produced it yourself, outside the system, independent of the infrastructure that failed everyone else. The knowledge exists. The cuttings exist. The path exists. You now know something that 99% of Americans do not. You know that the famine food they banned is available in the produce aisle. You know how to turn one purchase into perpetual supply. You know why the regulatory classification has nothing to do with danger and everything to do with control. 3 billion people have known this for generations. American regulators hoped you would never learn. Kangkong does not need the supply chain. The question is, do you? If this vault opens something in you, subscribe to Nature's Blacklist and hit the bell. We are documenting the crops they criminalized, the foods they forgot, and the knowledge they buried. Some vegetables are too free to farm. Some nutrition is too cheap to sell. And some lists were designed to keep you hungry. The next vault opens soon.